Why use lots of words when little do?
This is like the third time I'm doing this intro because my brain is completely broken, just like Red Bull's Constructor trophy. Welcome to the 107 podcast with myself, Jacob, and my co-host Ash. Today we will be talking about the Belgian Grand Prix, which, in all honesty, I know we said it last week. Well, Ash, you said it last week that you thought it was a boring race. I agree with you. This week was a boring race.
I didn't think it was as bad as Hungary.
Really? I thought this was worse.
Really?
Yeah.
What race were you watching?
I was watching the Belgian Grand Prix, the snooze fest.
I don't think you
the
were.
Belgian Grand Prix. Although
you had Max come up a little bit. You had the first lap collisions with Oscar,
I think that's maybe
Carlos.
Why, because I quite like Carlos.
Yeah, Alex fighting. You had Lando dropping down, then coming back up.
That Williams flew. So, it really did fly. But like,
definitely not as boring as Hungary.
I think I was just disappointed because Piastri crashed and then ended up going out of lap one. I think my papaya tinted glasses definitely don't help. If McLaren don't do particularly well, it's not a great Grand Prix. Boring.
The tears that you had on them.
But I think that the sprint weekend, like the sprint race, for me was more entertaining than the actual race itself. Yeah. So
should we talk about sprint qualifying and sprint race?
Yes. So let's do the typical quali on Friday. Then we'll talk about sprint Saturday.
No. Let's just do the sprint.
Oh, you just want to talk about the sprint? Sure. Let's talk about the sprint.
Well, in the sprint shootout, Oscar Piastri P2.
Yeah, absolutely smashed it. Sort of smacked his ass back down on earth on Sunday, but absolutely smashed it on the Saturday.
But he was quick all weekend.
Yeah, quick all weekend. And I think they finally found a match for Lando in terms of performance. I think Lando was not on it this weekend.
I think he did all right in the race. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. But they were conditions.
This weekend,
he's
Oscar
typically
had
done
the
okay
upper hand
with.
this whole weekend.
Yeah, he did.
And fair play to him. You know, the upgrades are working well on that car.
True.
He's taking advantage. And McLaren, if they continue this, next year could be a real force to be reckoned with.
Potentially, yeah. Although we said that about Aston Martin, and then the hype train just sort of, I don't know, didn't even reach the station.
We need to just jump on another hype train.
Yes,
it's
true.
The McLaren hype train.
The McLaren hype train, my favorite hype train. I think that the weather definitely helped as well in the sprint race, because obviously you had the wet weather running, which is what the McLaren was set up for. I think they were expecting a lot more rain than actually happened, which I think drastically affected the performance of the McLaren. So I don't know how well obviously they're going to do in, for example, Monza, because if they expect rain in Monza and it doesn't happen, Monza is like the lowest downforce track like during the entire calendar.
They'll know the weather.
Yeah,
they'll have the skinny rear wings.
I hope that McLaren don't make some sort of mistake like that again. They need to work on the slippiness of the car for that weekend for sure. But I mean, saying that, they did win there 2 years ago, so you can't really knock it that much. Like, clearly they know what to do at the track. So,
I mean, yeah, but we also have to remember that Lewis and Max took each other out.
Was it 2 years ago that McLaren won?
2021.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 2 years or last year.
Yeah,
but obviously Max won last year.
Max drove over Lewis.
Yeah.
But yeah, sprint shootout. The Alpines did well. Both getting into top 10, Gasly P6, but yeah, the real standout was Oscar in P2.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. And then you had the sprint race, and Oscar was leading for all of 4 corners?
He led for 2 laps.
Did he?
Yeah, 2 laps.
I swear Verstappen got him straight away, didn't he?
It was 2 laps.
I'm thinking about Sergio and Charles. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you are.
Bad. Yeah, Oscar led. Oh yeah, because there was an incident at the start. So. Yeah, well done to him for being the first rookie to lead a race since, I think,
in 10 years since
Esteban Ocon in 2013. Yeah,
there it is. Yep.
So, yeah, good on him. And he got a podium. Can we call it a podium? Do we call it?
I would call it. It's a weak podium. It's a weak podium. It's not a podium, but it is. You know.
Yeah, they need another name.
So I'm not going to classify him as having a podium, because also they didn't get the champagne out and they didn't go up on the podium, so I'm not really going to count it. But I think he classified it as his first top 3 finish in Formula 1, and I'm like, yeah, that's the best way to classify it.
That is, yeah. So well done to him. Held off the Ferraris as well. So
a long time coming. I think he was also very unlucky in the race, which we'll get on to. But I think it's a long time coming for Oscar for sure. And it's also absolutely hilarious that on the weekend where Oscar Piastri finishes P2 in the sprint race, the Alpine team just completely fall apart because of people leaving the team. It's wild.
But they didn't fall apart because Gasly got P3 in the sprint. They did okay-ish in the race.
Yeah, they did okay. They didn't. It's just like the high of obviously Oscar being P2 and then Alpine having multiple people leave within the same weekend. The whole team has just been turned upside down from top to bottom. So it's just very interesting to see the parallels essentially. Other than that, sprint race was a sprint race.
That's the thing. Well, no, because a very rare mistake by Fernando.
Oh yeah, Fernando put it in the wall. Well, actually, he sort of booped the wall, didn't he? He didn't really crash.
Well, he did like a couple of 360s, didn't he?
Yeah, he span out going into where I was a couple of years ago, and just sort of like he just stopped just before the wall. So I don't think there was too much damage to the Aston Martin, maybe some floor damage, but it's very rare to see a mistake like that from Alonso for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, there's conditions they catch anyone out. So
true,
but Pierre Gasly in P3 when, like you said, Alpine are just falling apart. We'll talk about that after we do the race because you can do nothing but laugh, really. That's
pretty much, yeah. And then obviously we have the penalty for Hamilton.
Right. So
what are your opinions on it?
When I first saw it, I was like, it's a racing incident. And then when I saw the onboard, I haven't seen Sergio's onboard. I've seen just Lewis's onboard. I'm kind of 50-50. I know, don't be on the fence, because he was fair enough to make the move. He just understeered.
Yeah.
But
so Lewis's front right just hit the curb and I think slipped, and I think that's what caused the understeer.
Yeah. And I know part of it's like, well, he didn't have control of the car, which meant he got into Sergio and damaged his side pod. But the other part was like they're racing. These things happen. I would not have given him a penalty. I would have called it a racing incident.
Yeah, see, this is my thing as well. To me, it's a racing incident. It wasn't intentional. However, Lewis's history of pulling that exact same move a lot is very, very worrying. Lewis has pulled that
the
move
other two
so many times. There's literally, I went on Twitter and there's a compilation that's maybe a minute and a half long, 2 minutes, of Lewis sticking his wheel up on the inside of a car and the other car either taking damage or spinning out. There are so many clips of it that you can make a video that's over a minute long. It's a signature Lewis Hamilton move, and I think that it might even potentially be that the stewards, FIA, whoever, have seen, it's a typical Lewis move, stick the wheel up on the inside of a corner and spin the other car out type thing, or have a collision with the other car. He's done it so many times, he should know better. Penalty.
So the other ones that I've seen where, Brazil and Albon and Austria and Albon, wasn't it? Are two clear-cut examples. This one, so the rule is...
Max Silverstone as well.
No, I don't think that was a penalty.
I think that was a straight disqualification, to be completely honest.
No, I don't think that was a penalty. Because the rule is I think your front wing of your car has to be about halfway across where the other driver's car is, and they have to leave you space. Yeah. So in this one, Sergio left him space, which was fine. Now that I'm kind of talking it out, it actually should have been a penalty. And he understeered into him. So this is not one where he was like, dude, you're not getting there. And, he boops the rear wheel. He was more than halfway across, hence where you saw the side pod damage.
Yeah.
But I also think if you just stop moves like that, then everything would just be DRS overtakes.
Exactly. This is my thing. It's a racing incident. It was a complete accident. Neither driver was really 100% at fault.
No.
Like, it was a little bit. Had Lewis not had that understeer where he clipped the curb, there wouldn't have been an incident. It's just an accident. It is what it is. It's a racing incident. It's not on purpose.
Had Sergio not left the door open for him, basically.
That's the thing. If Sergio hadn't, left the door open for him, then it wouldn't have been there wouldn't have been a gap. And Lewis literally said himself, I saw a gap, so I went for it. And every racing driver on the planet, when you see a gap, you go for it. It's not that difficult. So I think that had there not been any damage to Sergio's car, no penalty.
Yeah, if there's no understeer.
There was damage, and a decent amount of damage, to be fair, because those Red Bull side pods are made out of paper mache, apparently. Because this isn't the first time a Red Bull side pod has been damaged badly, also ironically by Mercedes, but it was a bit paper mache-y. Like, it wasn't, the strength wasn't really there. But obviously a side pod isn't something which, you need lots and lots of structural integrity for. So I can kind of understand it. Anyway, I stand by it. It was a racing incident. It is what it is. It wasn't done on purpose. I just see it as a complete accident. Sergio could have left Lewis more room. Lewis could have left Sergio more room. Lewis could have not understeered, but it was a wet track as well. So, you have to take that into account too. It's a racing incident. If that's not a racing incident, then why the fuck do we put these cars on track? And why wouldn't it only be, you're only allowed to overtake in the overtaking zones, the DRS zones, otherwise you can't overtake? That's what this sport is coming to. It's fucking ridiculous. Just let the man try and overtake, let them make little risky moves down the inside. It's also ironic because the incident the day after with Piastri and Carlos Sainz, reasonably similar-ish sort of impact, not incident itself, but impact and damage was reasonably the same. Obviously, Piastri didn't get a penalty because he DNF'd essentially, but it was a similar-ish situation. And Lewis also picked up 2 penalty points after the incident as well because of the collision. Piastri didn't pick up any. It's a racing incident. I don't see how it's anything more than a racing incident. I really don't get it. I understand the rules and the regulations and blah, 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 but it's too soft. It's way, way, way too soft.
Is your rant over?
I'm done. I just I put up a video as well on the 107 TikTok. Follow us if you haven't already. But I got quite a bit of hate, direct hate, being you just, one of them said, you just got a boner for Hamilton. And I'm like, no, that's not it whatsoever. It's just racing. It just is racing. It's not. It's what happens.
I'm going to say that the time penalty was right, and let me explain to you why it's right. It just sets a precedent where any driver can be like, look, I'm just going to dive it down the inside, and if I lock up or understeer and damage someone, I'm just trying to go for the overtake, right? It's like you said earlier. If he didn't understeer, it would have been a great move and stuff. But because he understeered, and he has to take that into account, like you said, it's wet.
Yeah.
He's forced me onto the dirty line. He took that risk. He damaged Perez's car. And therefore, you've got to get a penalty for that. So the risk is, in the overtakes, if I fuck this up, I could get a penalty.
Yeah.
Do I do it? Is it worth it? Do I wait till somewhere else? And like I said, that could new to the races. But I think for the steward to look, we have to give a penalty because if we don't, we basically were saying to anyone, just dive it up the inside. And if
you say that, but there have been various other incidents during the entire year which deserved penalties more than that.
Yeah, I know. And I think some of the stewards they're inconsistent.
Honestly, and I was saying this on a comment response to
let's compare it.
Very quickly, I was saying this on a comment response to obviously some of the stuff which happened in Formula E this weekend as well. There's a big controversy around Formula E because somebody who essentially should have won the championship was denied that because of somebody not being somebody being disqualified. I don't fully understand it, but there's a lot of controversy around the Formula E result, which ultimately decided the world champion. And the FIA they're just not consistent. And I was saying in a comment that if the FIA had a reasonably big competitor who actually, were able to do FIA level stuff, I think they'd be in massive trouble, because this isn't the first time or the second or third or fourth. It keeps happening time and time again. The FIA fail to deliver fair stewarding.
Yeah,
they're awful. They're awful.
The lack of consistent stewards. They don't give clear explanations for why they give penalties.
No.
There needs to be a bit of an overhaul.
Like, even if you just take last year, where Verstappen won the title, he didn't even know that he'd won the title. Red Bull didn't know he'd won the title. They were just like, oh yeah, congrats on the win type thing. And then all of a sudden these graphics started popping up. And the fact that the FIA had to explain their own rules in the TV broadcast and explain to Max exactly how he won and explain to Christian exactly how he won, because the rules are that badly written, we have a problem. Nobody knew, other than the FIA, that he'd actually won. Everyone else just considered, right, well, Max has won, that's it, on to the next one.
But then...
It's such bad organisation. It just is.
Okay, but let's go back to the Lewis incident.
Yes.
Let's compare it to the race where Oscar and Carlos had their coming together.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a racing incident, or do you think someone should have got a penalty?
I also would have called that a racing incident, which is sort of what they called it anyway. Oscar had to retire because he had, I think it was suspension damage. Right. I don't actually fully know exactly what the damage was.
Perez had damage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perez didn't have to retire.
He did. He retired the car.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry, I meant
sprint.
Sorry, I'm confusing it as well, because obviously Carlos didn't have to retire, but they retired the car, I think 17 laps after the incident.
They did retire his car.
Yeah, they retired it eventually. So, but obviously they were hoping for a red flag, which then they could potentially make some repairs to it, or to the Ferrari, or whatever it was.
But Oscar retired his car.
But Oscar retired his car. That's where the confusion came from. I do apologise. Yep. However, I still think it was a racing incident. I've seen a lot of people, especially on Twitter, saying that...
On X.
Sorry now. Jesus. But I've seen a lot of people saying on... I'm going to call it Twitter anyway, because screw X. But I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, and especially watching the replays and stuff like that, if you're telling me a racing driver isn't going to go for a gap which is 3 cars wide... you're laughing. Any racing driver in that position is going to go for that gap. Carlos locks up going into turn 1. He did not have full control of his car, and I would argue that he caused the collision. Oscar had to hit the wall in order to avoid, or try his best to avoid, collision or contact with Carlos Sainz. If anyone was to get a penalty, it's Carlos, not Oscar. That is it. That is factual. So there's no other way that you can describe that. However, it's a racing incident. Both drivers were just trying to get around the corner. It's a racing incident.
It's not.
It absolutely is a racing incident.
You just explained it. Carlos locked up. He didn't have full control of his car. And he goes into Oscar.
Yeah, true. But Carlos didn't have any room the opposite side of him either. So
he locked up.
True.
So he doesn't have full control of his car.
So he locked up, and then there's maybe 10, 15 meters where he hasn't locked up, and he has the opportunity to regain control. However, that gap has gotten even smaller by that point as well. Because
he locked up.
I know, but I still see it as a racing incident, because... No. It's just a racing incident. It just is.
It's not a racing incident.
So by that point then, do you think that Carlos should have had a time penalty then?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you think he should have had a time penalty?
Yeah, I think he should have had a penalty.
How much?
If we're going by 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Okay, fair enough.
Seconds. But if we're going by what happened yesterday, you're talking about the FIA stewards need to be consistent.
Yeah.
They said, well, and like you said, if Lewis didn't go on the curb, if he didn't lose control of his car and understeer, they wouldn't have given the penalty, but he did. That's probably why they did it. I know it's the start of the race. I know tyres are cold and stuff like that. But Carlos went in, maybe a little bit too hot. That's why he locked up. He locked up. He goes into Oscar. Oscar has nowhere to go.
No, literally nowhere.
He has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
and he damages that car. Oscar is out, damages his own car, but Oscar's out. Why is that not a penalty?
So,
I know.
Do you not remember what I said? I said if you were to give a penalty to anyone, you give it to Carlos. I did say that, to be fair.
That's fair, but you also keep saying it's a racing incident.
But now, I still think it's a racing incident.
No, I know Martin always says like they give a bit of leniency to like lap 1 incidents.
Yeah,
but no, like other drivers didn't lock up. I bet you, right? Because like what happened on the Hungary Grand Prix?
Yeah,
Zhu went into the back of Ricciardo, who went into the Alpines, who hit each other, and they went out.
Yeah.
Right. Why is it different in this one?
I'm not saying it is different.
No, but I'm just asking the question. So why is it that people are saying it's a racing incident?
Because 2 cars retired, not 1.
Technically, different. Carlos didn't even retire at that time.
True, yeah, but I'm going to go with end of race results. Those 2 cars retired.
I think
Carlos retired.
The Hamilton penalty was right, and by that precedent, Carlos should have got a penalty.
I'm saying neither of them are penalties. Okay. I think if
agree
if they're both if they're both penalties, world's gone soft.
No,
world's gone soft.
Because then what's to stop? Like, okay, then what's to stop everyone just like fuck it? I'll just send it into turn 1. It doesn't matter because it's turn 1. It's an opening lap. We won't get any penalties.
Great racing. I'll give you -5 seconds. No, I get your point.
Like,
let me respond. Let me respond.
Okay. Let me just say this. Wait. Let me just say this. Let me say. What is to stop someone? I'm not going to name a driver, but fuck it. Let's just say Sergio.
Sure. Okay. Right, let's bully him some more.
Yeah. I mean, we did bully him quite a lot. All right. Let's not say Sergio. Let's say Lando. Right, let's just say Lando. Sure. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Lando.
Everyone loves Lando. Lando's P2 on the grid.
Yeah.
Max is P1.
Yeah.
Lando's like, fuck it. I'm a racing driver. I'm going to go for the win.
Yeah.
They both start. Lando's like, I'm on the inside. I'm just going to smash on the brakes. And if I lock up and hit Max, well, it doesn't matter because it's a racing incident, right? I'm going for that gap. Yeah, that's what it's going to do. That's what it's going to set precedent.
It's absolutely not. So
it absolutely is.
So I don't think it is. Because
no, but that's what will happen. Because then
I don't think that would happen. Because I think that you have to see as well that it was not intentional whatsoever.
No, but I mean Lewis wasn't intentional. He's not like I'm just going to drive.
Exactly. So it shouldn't be a penalty.
Yeah, but you have to be in control of the car. Okay, what's to stop Carlos doing it in Zandvoort?
Honestly,
he didn't get a penalty last time, so I'm just going to lock up and just go into that corner.
Yeah, very good point. But I think it's the context as well of the other cars and stuff like that around you. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's a difficult thing to answer.
Obviously, as a driver, you're not going to want to do it, right? You want to finish the race. You might go back a position. I understand that.
Yeah.
But the precedent is, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to try and make up positions at the start, like every driver wants to.
Yeah.
And I know if I do make a mistake, that I might get away with it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to go that extra bit harder.
I think that the thing is that it's difficult to say, oh yes, it will, or oh no, it won't set a precedent, because every single situation is so unique and different. That's my only thing. Like I'm not saying that it will or won't encourage more of it. Also, because the FIA very clearly have very, very different thoughts on this than we do. So there's that as well. And more than likely, something that absolutely does not deserve a penalty will end up getting a penalty at some point anyway. And vice versa, because, yeah. But I think that, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, if drivers know that they could get away with something like that, but then seeing the incident, so Lewis, he could have very easily picked up a puncture. Very easily. Oscar putting his wheels up on the inside of that corner, trying to make the corner, which I'd argue he did, to be fair. He might think again the next time because he DNF'd. So I think that the consequence doesn't always have to be a time penalty. It can be the damage that you take by taking those risks. And every single time you get in a car as a Formula One driver, you calculate these risks. And so I don't think
no one goes dive bombing on the inside on every corner.
So I don't think we need time penalties to discourage things like that. Time penalties should come for complete recklessness. and breaking
what
rules.
I'm saying is this is where it's not like I said, it's not drivers. We're going back to the FIA. Is you can't give a penalty for one incident and then a similar incident. You're like, no, right? Based on what? Like they didn't.
Both should be none.
No, they both should be penalties.
No, none of them should be penalties.
What the heck is wrong with you?
What? None of them should be penalties. I will stand by that decision. I think that both were racing incidents.
Disagree with you.
Well, the FIA sort of agree with me.
Don't
because
talk
one
to me
of them
anymore.
Was an anyway,
okay, so
anything else that happened in the sprint race? Anything else happened in the sprint race?
We moved on to the race, didn't we? Yeah, no, just Fernando unfortunately went out.
Yeah.
Pierre Gasly, good on him for getting P3.
Yeah.
As well, getting some
very
points for the Alpine team. And yeah, we'll move on to the race. We won't talk about the start because we've just done that for the past 20 minutes.
So only other thing around the start is that obviously quite a few people lost out at the beginning because obviously going into Eau Rouge, Piastri was going very, very slowly. So quite a few drivers lost out because they didn't know he was going slowly and were trying to get round him and stuff like that. So, but a lot of drivers also gained quite a bit from that as well. I think Sargent jumped up like 4 places and Ricciardo dropped 2 or 3. So like this is what I mean by, and that's why I wanted to talk about it.
Max got up to P4, didn't he?
Yeah, so Max gained 2 places as well. So like this is what I'm saying. Like you know, some people lost out from it and some people did really well from it. But it was a bit of a shit show, which jumbled things up, which made it, I guess, a little bit more interesting. But first corner, first lap on most Grand Prix are very interesting. So I mean, yeah, it didn't make the race better or worse. I still think the rest of the race was boring.
Oh, I think it helped. Maybe the Aston Martins by not having a Ferrari and a McLaren there. I don't think Fernando would have finished P5.
Yeah, Carlos slowly dropping back did make for some interesting overtakes and some interesting moments as well. Because also some cars took a bit longer to overtake him than they should have potentially done.
So, yeah. Okay, so Max. Let's talk about Max and GP.
Sure, yes. Let's do that.
I love their relationship.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I think that the only thing is that some people seem so for context, Max was making some comments on the radio being like, oh, like, you know, like we'll just do some pit stop practice, haha, type thing in terms of like because they were so far ahead. And for me, it is a little bit disrespectful, but at the same time, like I said to you before, Max backs it up every single time anyway, so you can't really be that annoyed by it, really.
This goes back to what we were saying last week, is the radio is just a snippet of the conversation in the race and just a very small segment of Max's, not only his relationship with GP, but with the team as itself, right? So him saying, let's do some pit stop practice is not
just a joke.
Our team are rubbish at pit stops or anything like that.
No.
I mean, this guy finished a pit stop ahead of Sergio. He's probably like, hey, should we go for fastest lap? Should we do this? Should we do that? It's like, it's, you know, I don't blame him. He probably wants to get as many points as he can. The team obviously have to like, right, if we get the win, we get the win. There's no need to put it at risk or danger. But
yeah, I mean, Max Verstappen is leading the Constructors' Championship anyway, so there is that as well.
But yeah, I like the relationship. And the fact that the character comes out and kind of when you see other drivers and other race engineers, and you're like, help him. It's like, help him. I mean, the Ferrari is a classic example. Right?
Xavi, yeah. We are checking.
Even Carlos's engineer, they're talking to him. Was it at the French Grand Prix last year? And he's like in the middle of
the battle with Sergio. Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad.
Like, come on, man.
It's like, no, not now.
A really good video. I don't know if it was on Instagram or YouTube of. Do you remember who Pierre's race engineer was?
Oh, yes. And this is with Daniel Ricciardo, right?
Yeah, where he's literally talking him through everything, giving him the right information.
Absolutely unreal. I can't remember who the race engineer actually is. I just know he's French. I've never heard clearer English from a French person, by the way. It's crystal clear. It's absolutely brilliant. AlphaTauri Daniel Ricciardo race engineer, I guess, is probably what you'd want to Google. But he was absolutely brilliant. Like, can't knock him whatsoever. He was talking to Daniel with really, really good information the entire time. He was providing updates on the cars ahead, the cars behind. Like, he was probably providing Daniel with too much information, if anything. But I guess you'd much rather have too much information than we are checking. So
Pierre Hamlin. His name
yes,
is.
Sure, Pierre Hamlin. Of course, it's going to be Pierre. No, I remember because obviously Pierre had a race engineer called Pierre, and I remember that me being like, "Huh, that's funny." So,
Pierre Hamlin.
He did an excellent job in Hungary with Danny Rick's first race back. And speaking of Danny Rick's first race back, second race back, sorry, didn't go particularly well, did it?
No, it didn't.
Damn, Yuki's got hands.
Yuki
obviously finishing in the points.
He did. He got P10.
Yet again, Yuki showing that admittedly there was some conditions which made it easier for Yuki to score that point. But Yuki has proved that AlphaTauri can score points. And I still stand by that Daniel Ricciardo will not outscore Yuki this year.
Oh, that's a tough one. It's a tough one. Because he did out-qualify him in the sprint, didn't he?
Yes, he did, but he didn't score any points in it, so whatever.
True that.
So there's that too.
And I think Ricciardo would have out-qualified him in the race quali had he not had his lap time deleted. But anyway, no, we're not disrespecting Yuki on this podcast. Yuki's life.
Damn right. I think Yuki did very, very well and a very hard-earned point for himself in the championship, which is absolutely brilliant. And you're kind of right. Maybe if Daniel had qualified a little bit better, then he would have potentially scored more points.
I'm always right. It was a penalty.
You're always right. What did you say about Nick? What did you say about Nick? Remind me what you said.
They were so worried that Nick would beat Yuki that they just had to get rid of him.
I remember off air you said Nick De Vries world champion 2023. Is that right? Can you confirm
news,
that?
Mate. Fake news.
But yeah, so I think long story short, the AlphaTauri is capable of scoring points.
Yeah.
But
and they've got two solid drivers.
Yeah, Yuki will be more than enough competition for Daniel Ricciardo for the rest of the season. So, and like we said, I think that Daniel has to score points in the next 2, maybe 3 races to prove that he's still on a decent enough level, providing there are no huge incidents. Like, it's not his fault. Like in Hungary, was not his fault that he had somebody drive into the back of him. So if that sort of happens again in the next 2 or 3 races, then not really a lot you can do about it. But I think that if nothing really happens and he just puts in some average performances and Yuki beats him, then I'd argue that maybe he isn't ready for Checo's seat, in all honesty. But I still think Checo fumbled the bag this weekend 100%.
Well, he got himself up to P2 in really which he should be finishing.
Yeah.
I think if he continues to do that to the end of the season, he's fine.
Yeah,
it's scary how
I know where you're going.
Literally put a pit stop on him.
Yeah.
From P6.
So Verstappen started 5 positions behind Perez, because Perez was 4 positions, behind Perez, and still won, and still could have had another pit stop for the fastest lap, and still won.
Yeah.
Sergio has he's done what is expected of him.
Just to add to that,
come on,
out-qualified by Leclerc in the Ferrari.
Yeah. This is the thing. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
I know he got P1 after the straight.
Yeah.
But he got out-qualified.
Still,
obviously, Leclerc is a great qualifier.
Absolutely brilliant. As soon as he gets pole, I'm looking forward to the Max Verstappen victory. But it's just ridiculous. Also, a slightly worrying stat for Leclerc is that he has the joint most number of pole positions for any race driver to not win the championship.
He'll get it.
He is currently tied with Valtteri Bottas.
He'll get it. He'll get his championship. He will. He's too good of a race driver. He just needs the team.
I don't know about that one.
He will.
I'm doubting it. I'm doubting it. I think he will stay too loyal to Ferrari, and Ferrari will slowly catch more and more on fire
I think
as Oscar Piastri sweeps the competition away in his papaya McLaren.
As if when Lewis retires, Charles will go to Mercedes,
and Mercedes will still have a dogshit car.
It's all right. It's all right. It's hard with Sergio. I know it's Max, and Max is a phenom, and him and Red Bull are absolutely gelled, but you can't be finishing a pit stop behind your teammate when you were in essentially P1 at the end of the lap.
Here's a similar thing, right? I'll give you a similar situation, right? The Silver War.
Okay.
Nico.
Which one? Nico, yeah.
Nico has before the year where he won the Drivers' Championship, and Lewis had, how many titles did Lewis have by that point? 3.
Lewis won 2008, 2014,
and 15. So 3. Yeah, yes, I was right. Okay, cool. So if you take that as a similar situation, 2 drivers in very clearly the most dominant car, very clearly, right? And one of them never won the championship before. One of them won it at least once, like a few times, let's say. Yeah. Similar enough situations, right? Next season, it would be the exact situation. And I understand that it essentially mentally broke Nico to win that championship. He must have dug deeper than anyone has ever dug deep before. And hats off to Nico for being the only person to beat Lewis Hamilton in equal machinery. Are we
talking about winning world championships? Because George beat him last year.
Yeah, sorry, winning world championship to beat him in a championship winning car, you know. But so my thing is that I just cannot see that happening whatsoever with Sergio and Max. And I think that Lewis and Max are on very, very similar levels. However, I just don't see Perez as a good number 2 to Max in any way, shape, or form. And in all honesty, you need somebody who is going to push your other driver to do better. And he's not doing that whatsoever. But
do you need him to do that? Max is levels above everyone as it is.
If you're Red Bull right now and you have the fastest car very quickly by almost a pit stop per race, right? And you've got one driver who sometimes struggles to even get it in the top 5, you've got a problem. It's embarrassing.
I would say Red Bull have a problem, but I wouldn't say Max has a problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is what I'm saying. Red Bull slash Sergio have a problem. It's embarrassing.
For Max, Sergio is a great number 2 at this moment in time.
Yeah, for Max, Max won't care because Sergio is useless.
Like Charles or Lewis or Fernando were fighting for race wins, he would be a bad number 2 driver because he's like, I need you to take points off these guys.
Sergio was a great number 2 driver during the 2021 season. He was the Mexican Minister of Defense, and he earned that title very, very well, right? Yeah. However, since then, just completely fumbled the bag at any given time. He just completely crumbles under pressure. Like, I don't understand. Like, I guess he puts a lot of pressure on himself, and this is why I'm saying that in a similar sort of vein, what Nico Rosberg did at Mercedes is absolutely incredible, and I think that's what Max would need at some point, and what Red Bull need at some point, because you cannot have this clown coming in and barely scoring points sometimes in the quickest car on the grid by a pit stop.
You're so mean.
I'm not. I'm being truthful. I am being truthful. Honestly, I tell you this now. If you're Red Bull and I'm being 100% deadly serious. If you're Red Bull and you're going, clearly with Sergio, he's not doing the best. You could pick any number of drivers to do the same thing for a hell of a lot less money and be a yes man and very clearly and very happily pick up podiums, pick up P2s week in, week out, and maybe every now and again pick up a race win. You could probably walk down to Haas right now and take any of their drivers and have them get P2 almost every week. I guarantee it. Sergio is just not good enough. He's not. That's it. That's the issue that it comes down to. Sergio's not good enough.
You're just very angry today.
Apparently so. I don't understand how.
Have you had your coffee?
I have had coffee. Yes, I have run out of milk though, so I can't have another coffee, which is very disappointing.
I think with the car being as dominant as it is, they can let these things with Sergio slide for the moment. Because he's not putting any pressure on Max. Max is winning every race, it's fine.
Yeah, but to me, they need to be more ruthless because it's not okay.
But maybe not Max, maybe not Sergio, someone else. But they don't want a Nico Lewis situation, right?
No, they don't.
For all that was said about Nico, he brought it down to their last race in 2014. 2015, he had a little bit of a dip, but it was still towards the end of the season. 2016 was a great season. Back and forth, but you could see Toto was aging like 10 or 15 years every time them two were close on track.
He looks younger now than he did.
He does. He looks a lot younger now. Apparently, Lewis is like, that's the angriest I've ever seen Toto was when him and Nico crashed.
That does not surprise
me. Can you imagine
me.
Two multi-millionaire grown adult racing car drivers getting shouted at by Toto? But I think Red Bull have everything locked up till 2026, and they will keep Sergio possibly till 2026. I think if he has a good year next year, but I think
him in Chinese F4, mate.
When other teams start catching up, and if 2026 is going to be looking like it's going to be a battle with other teams, they may be like, right, we need another driver that's gonna regularly be in Q3. It's going to be challenging. Otherwise, it will be like Felipe Massa and Fernando Alonso, where Fernando is literally just, help me, Felipe, help me.
That's the thing. Like I think
that's one of the reasons why he lost 2010 and 2012.
Yeah,
Felipe was not taking enough points off his rivals.
I think Red Bull are obviously in a very, very privileged position of having arguably the most dominant car in Formula One history. Let's be honest, right?
It is. Would you not say it is?
I'd argue it is already. I think maybe the only other one would be the SF2000, the Ferrari, the F2000.
The 2004 one.
Yeah, 2004.
Schumacher won like the opening set of races.
Yeah.
Or that McLaren that won every race bar one.
Bar one, and that was an incident behind the safety car was the reason why they didn't win the full season.
Yeah.
I believe. But this is what I'm saying. Arguably the most dominant car in Formula One history.
I would agree with you there. I don't see them. I can't see them losing a race.
Yeah, I can't see them losing a race this year.
In a statistical way, it's like nigh on impossible, right? Okay, there might be a time where like the DNF or car has failures and stuff like that, but I don't see
do you know what would be really, really interesting is if we had a similar situation to Barcelona with the two Mercedes drivers and they both hit into each other and both DNF. That's the only time that I see some sort of situation.
That's it. So you know what? Red Bull probably happy. He's like, thank God.
We almost had that in Austria, didn't we?
Yeah,
we almost had that in Austria. So there's
Max off.
There's grounds for it to happen again. But what I think that Red Bull need is they need a Lewis Valtteri situation. That's what they need. And that's why I'm saying Sergio is not good enough. He does not fit. Chuck Yuki in the car. Why not?
Nah, because Yuki's going to be going for it.
Yuki would be amazing in that Red Bull. Like he would be so good.
This is what you get for calling me short, Max.
First race, bam. No, I honestly, I just think get someone else in the car. Pay, do what they did with Daniel Ricciardo at McLaren. Pay the rest of his contract out and just get someone else in. Seriously.
I think they're happy with it for now. They don't want to upset the status.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I would pay the $16-20 million that Sergio is costing them per season in contract wages and just get rid of him.
Nah, I don't think they will. He'll be there next season. Can we give some love to Leclerc, please?
Why?
What do you mean, why? What do you mean, why?
I'm kidding. I love Charles.
First of all, put it on P2 in qualifying.
Yeah, great
Brilliant.
job.
Right?
Got the pole for the race.
Getting a podium. And Ferrari.
Smashed it. Absolutely smashed it. It would have been nice to see Carlos up there as well, had he not locked up.
Well, that's Carlos's fault. So
yeah, true. Charles did absolutely brilliant. And your little reel did very well.
Yeah, it's still going well.
Yeah, it's still
going
going
well.
well. Yeah.
I was trying to spread some positivity for Ferrari here. Okay,
Yeah.
If we give them the negative, we've got to give them the positive,
Yeah,
right?
true.
So show some love for Leclerc. They didn't fuck up the strategy.
No.
I was half expecting, oh, it's lap 43. Let's pick you for wets.
Yeah, but look what happens when they don't fuck up the strategy. They get a podium.
This is what I was saying last week. They can get solid results.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I said last week before, where I said that the Ferrari is easily within the top 3 in terms of quali pace.
Yeah.
Easy
Especially
top 3. 6.
Well, look, I mean, B16.
16.
Yeah, because Carlos and Charles are qualifying close to each other, and yeah. So my boy Chuck, good on you, and hopefully this will just they're getting into the break on a positive, getting that podium, and hopefully they come back out of it refreshed, renewed. Maybe they'll do some team building workshops over the summer break.
Yeah, who knows?
And,
I think that I don't think there will be any surprises in terms of silly season for drivers, but I think staff there will be a little bit of.
Oh, there already is, isn't it? Mekis is gone.
Yeah,
Alpine. We'll talk about Alpine after we run through the race.
Yeah.
Let's also shout out Lando Norris.
Yeah.
He was at the back of the grid at one point, bringing it up to P7.
Good
on him.
He did exactly so. McLaren talked about it pre-race. He did exactly what they were talking about in terms of he found some free air where there was no other cars, no dirty air to follow. He pitted early for the hards, completely out of sync with the rest of the grid. And then was essentially the tyre whisperer on the set of softs. He did, was it 24, 26 laps on a set of softs?
No idea.
And they looked decent enough when he came into after the race as well. So he did a fantastic job with a McLaren which was not set up for that race very well. No,
they were set up for a wet race.
They were set up for mixed conditions. I think they maybe gambled a little bit on the setup for the car, and I think did the wrong thing. But then again, Oscar Piastri did P2 in the sprint, so I mean maybe they did.
It worked for the sprint.
It worked for the sprint, so
fair play to him. Lewis P4.
Yeah, we spoke about George did pretty well as well, coming all the way up from
George P6.
Yeah,
for me,
Ocon I know did Max very well.
Ocon got P8, I think Pierre did quite well as well. Just outside of the points. I think for me, my driver of the day, because it was given to Max, I would have given it to someone like George.
I would have given it to Ocon.
Really? George or Charles? I'd have given it to them.
Yeah, Charles did pretty well, but I would have given it to Ocon personally.
And can we just shout out Fernando? Right? If there's points to be had, he will maximize it.
There are currently only 3 drivers who have scored points in every single race this season, and that is Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, and Lewis Hamilton.
Really?
Scored points in every single normal race this season.
Yeah, because he was out the sprint.
Yeah, so every single race this season, those 3 drivers have scored points.
Good on him. I hope they know what's wrong with the car. The updates took him in the wrong direction, so hopefully, because they know that, they can make some changes and hopefully get him some podiums.
Yeah,
maybe even that race win.
Yeah, Singapore. They seemed very, very confident on Singapore, didn't they?
Yeah, but they also seemed confident on Hungary, but the updates
didn't work. So that's why I'm saying. So I think Singapore is probably their best chance.
If they get the car back to what it was and improve on it, then I agree.
All they've got to do is put the old parts back on. So I mean, how difficult is that?
Yeah. The other teams have made I know you're joking, but the other teams have made that step, haven't they?
I mean,
McLaren, Mercedes.
I'm not entirely joking. Stick the old stuff back on and then go from there. And that's seemingly what they've done. Or what they're doing essentially. So I think they'll be fine. Let's hope for that win. Although the most, and I said this to you on Instagram as well, but about a different driver pairing. But the most hilarious thing in the world would be as if Lance won the race this season. But what I said to you in an Instagram DM was the most Lando thing possible would be if Oscar won a race this season and Lando didn't.
It happened to him because
with Danny Rick.
With Danny Rick.
And Carlos very nearly won a race the year before as well in Monza.
Monza the year before.
He was honestly, if that Monza race was 2-3 laps longer, that would have been Carlos's win.
Yeah, and obviously, if the rain hadn't come in Russia,
Yeah.
Lando would have won that. So.
Well, no, it was obviously the miscommunication between the team. The team didn't tell him that more rain was coming in a certain area of the track. That's why he didn't pit.
Okay, yeah, I know, but if the rain hadn't come,
yeah,
he would have run away with that race.
But you get my point.
So,
yes. But yeah, so it would be the most Lando Norris thing
is
ever.
not at fault for anything ever in life.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying situationally.
I know.
Because also in Monza, when Danny Rick did win, Lando did say, "I'm quicker than Daniel. Let me pass him."
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And they didn't. So, and I think they were right not to let him past.
Yeah, they were right. There's no point risking an overtake.
No, exactly. No, because it would have slowed both cars down essentially. So,
yeah.
They did the right thing. So, yeah. Anything else from the race that you wanted to cover? Because I don't really have too much.
No, I
thought
enjoyed
it was
the race.
I thought it was boring.
I thought there was good battles throughout.
Yeah.
Albon did well. The Alpha's done well in 12 and 13.
Yeah.
They seem to be kind of showing some steady improvement in that car, which is interesting.
I'm disappointed in Haas. I will say that. I was a bit disappointed in Haas this weekend. They had a bit of a rubbish weekend, which I'm really sad to see. My boys down at Haas did not do well this weekend.
I mean, they just. Honestly, I forget about Haas. I don't expect them to get points.
I know what you mean. But obviously Magnussen finished P15, I think. Yes, P15, and Hulkenberg finished dead last at P18.
I don't know how much longer that's going to last. At least you see Williams and Alpha, McLaren are making improvements.
Yeah.
I just don't ever see Haas we've got a set of upgrades and we're improving and we've worked out our tyre issues kind of thing. Because they do well in quali, or Nico does anyway.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, they just eat up their tires and they just go backwards. And it doesn't seem to have changed in half the season.
I am wondering around their driver situation, though. Because
what, you think K-Mag might be gone?
So I don't know exactly what's going on in terms of contract situations with Haas, other than both drivers are out of contract at the end of this year. And both of them seemed confident that they were going to have their contracts extended again for another year, I believe. But at the same time, because it's Haas, because you've got the smallest budget of any team, and if Haas is to stay as Haas and not get taken over by Andretti or whoever or whatever it is, whoever's
beep,
interested.
Beep, beep. Andretti mentioned. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think that if that isn't going to happen and Haas stay as Haas for the next 2 or 3 years, let's say up until the 2026 regs, I think that if they're going to keep one of the two, provided that the money isn't ridiculous, they'll keep Hulkenberg and they'll drop Kevin. But if you're Haas and you're driving around at the back of the grid, and let's say, for example, both drivers earn 10 million a year. I know that won't be the cost, but let's say out of nowhere they cost 10 million. I mean, they could very easily look at bringing in other drivers who are cheaper and save money and still hang around at the back of the grid.
I wouldn't bring in a cheaper driver. I'd bring in a pay driver.
Yeah, or a pay driver. That's the other way of going it.
But they need investments.
I'm looking at potentially F2, and I'm saying that some of the drivers in F2 could potentially come in and replace either one of those drivers.
I think Nico should be safe. I think he's proved.
Nico's pretty safe, I would argue. It's Kevin that I'm a little bit worried about. Me and my Bezzy mate, I think I'm a little worried about him because
I think Kevin might be the one. But if I'm Haas, I'm going to try and bring in a pay driver, get some investment, and see if you can invest into the team and get.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think that Haas will say to Kevin, "Look, here's a 1-year extension, or like here's a new contract for whatever." But I think that at the same time, they will also be looking for anyone else who has some cash, like a Latifi type, who will bring in money to that team. And I think if they were at the cost cap and they was like obviously, had more money coming in than they would be spending or whatever, I don't think it would be an issue whatsoever. But if there's any pay drivers out there, that Haas seat is always available, essentially. Because I know that Kevin doesn't bring in a shit ton of commercial value. Nico brings in a decent amount of commercial value, as far as I know. I think because obviously he has quite a few connections with oh god, like there's like a bank or something that he's part of, and then like something else. Like Fernando Alonso has a relationship with Citibank. Nico has a relationship with someone else as well. So I think Nico is more safe than Kevin. Also,
but just performance-wise,
and also nationality. Nico is German. He's currently the only German driver on the grid, and you've got the only Dane on the grid. Germany is so much bigger than Denmark. I know, quite literally. And so the commercial value for Nico will be much more. So I'd imagine that if they were going to drop one of the two for a pay driver and take into account the financials and the results, Kevin's gone, which is really sad to say. But it's just, I think it doesn't help that the car's not amazing. And
no, it doesn't.
It's just, it's not a great situation down there at Haas at the moment.
Yeah, I just don't see how they get out of it. Because didn't they make actually I don't really want to talk about it. It's just painful.
Yeah, it's not great. What is the Nico? I'm looking at the Nico Hulkenberg sponsor, because there is like Decra. He's sponsored by Decra, which is like a huge company in Germany. Huge. They're like the AA. They do like roadside assistance, and they have workshops and stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Decra are massive. Like they're really, really massive. They're not
sponsoring him anymore.
Oh, they're not sponsoring him anymore.
Yeah, they ended it from 2019.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I do apologize. Okay. Well,
you were wrong about that. Like you were wrong about the penalties.
Funny. But I don't know what else. Like whether or not he has any other bits and pieces.
I mean, yeah. I'm sure he has some stuff.
Yeah, but, of course. But I mean, I don't know of anything anything massive. But at the same time, I don't know if you're Haas, I don't know what other pay driver you could bring in. I'm sure there's someone.
There is someone.
Go on, please.
I don't think he can race because of where he's from.
Well, okay, I see where you're going with this. The person who, okay.
He who shall not be named.
I can't even say his name, let alone want to say it. But I guess yes. But other than that,
he's not coming back.
Other than that, I can't think of anyone.
The return of Pastor Maldonado.
Well, I mean, technically.
Are we talking about penalties every week?
I mean, technically, the Flying Finn is still on his sabbatical, so there is that. He's not a pay driver, but you know.
Man.
I tell you what, this podcast has definitely gone off the rails compared.
It's gone off the rails since we started arguing over penalties.
Well, an argument implies there are two sides, whereas I know I'm a 100% correct.
And humble, of course.
Oh, I'm incredibly humble. I'm very good at being humble. So...
Should we not talk about the race, and should we talk about Alpine?
Yeah, because there's nothing else really to talk about from the race, because it wasn't.
No, it's a summer break, so everyone will be out relaxing and enjoying themselves.
Speaking of people who are out and relaxing themselves, Alpine, they only have about 3 members of staff left.
That's it, yeah.
So, all change at Alpine. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about Alpine, so I don't really have that much to say. They're a bit of a nothingy team. I say that, but I'm a fan of Haas, and they're an even more nothingy team. So.
I mean, Alpine don't really set the world alight, do they?
No, that's my thing. It's not like, if you compare when Kevin got pole position last year in Brazil in the sprint race to Gasly ending up on the podium literally in the sprint race, which was a bigger news story? Which do people care more about? The Haas story. So Alpine are washed. So I don't really care. I also don't think that Otmar is particularly great at his job. So
I
heard
can't
that
judge if you've been in Formula One for that long, you must be doing something right.
I would argue that if you've been in Formula One that long, maybe it's time for a change. That's my other perspective on that as well. And I'm not saying that he is amazing at his job. He's bad at his job. I just don't think that he is particularly great from what I've seen and heard. I think he did very well when it was Force India, but he also did very well at Force India when he was buying parts from Mercedes.
Okay,
so I don't know how good of a job he actually does, other than writing checks to Mercedes. But for me, I don't know. And when he said that he's got another team lined up, that makes me worry a little bit because I don't want him at McLaren.
No, he's not going to go to McLaren.
No, I don't think he's going to go to McLaren. But like, it did make me go, oh no. I don't know where else he'd end up.
What team would he go to?
That's the thing. I don't know where he'd end up.
But AlphaTauri have just replaced Franz Tost with Laurent Mekies.
Yeah.
Andrea Stella's doing a good job.
Yeah, he's doing a great job at McLaren.
Mike Crack's doing a good job at Aston Martin.
Williams, but they've got
Alfa Romeo?
Alfa Romeo, maybe?
Because they lost Fred Vasseur to Ferrari.
Yeah.
So who took over?
I can't even remember the bloke's name. So maybe that's very telling.
Alfa Romeo
maybe he'll end up at Alfa Romeo.
Oh, or Alessandro Aluni Bravi.
Or could it be that he would lead the Andretti bid?
Jesus Christ. Can we talk about Andretti when they actually join? Every time. There's always Andretti with you.
Or high tech.
Maybe. Well, I know, because I think they would... that must mean if he knows he's going, that he knows that a team is definitely coming in. I thought they would have made that public by now.
I'm just thinking maybe because he said he's got something else lined up. So maybe he knows something that we don't. Yeah, that would be the big news of the summer break, is that they've accepted the application of Andretti or High-Tech, but
the thing is, like, how would that work? Because they removed him from his position. So
True.
He wasn't going to go to another team. So are you telling me in the time that they removed him, in the last few days, he's found another team to lead?
So here's my theory, which is probably a massive rabbit hole. But he said, I am going to Andretti when they join the grid in 2026 or whatever it is. Or like, I am leaving to go here. However, I will continue to work for Alpine. And... what essentially Alpine have done is they've gone, well, hold on a fucking minute. We don't want you around if you're just going to take information and learn even more, when we can very easily bring somebody else into the job.
He's on gardening leave.
Yeah, exactly. So you might as well chop his gardening leave sooner rather than later, right? So this is what I'm saying. Like, if they knew that he's going to leave at the end of the season, let's say he was planning on leaving at the end of the season. Right, if you're Alpine and you can save yourself some bother, there's a little break, 4 weeks, where you're not racing. Get rid of him now, so that he can't take any other information with him or get any further experience.
But his gardening leave is 1 year.
Exactly. So that could.
How if the team is joining next season, they're going to be without him?
No, I'm not saying that Andretti are joining next season. That's not what I said.
Oh, sorry, 2026.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. And maybe there was something in his contract where if he's dismissed by Alpine, his gardening leave is even longer than if he voluntarily leaves. So this is why I'm saying maybe them getting rid of him is purely to screw him over. I think, especially because, who's the head of Alpine at the moment, I think it could be a bit of a screw you. So that's why I think there's more to it than meets the eye. Because it's not just him that's leaving as well. He's taking people with him, type thing.
What, Alan Permain, you believe?
Yeah. But think about it. Seriously, because if you're Alpine, and Alpine are obviously Renault, they're Renault, right? And Renault are going to be supplying Andretti engines, or that's the rumor at the moment. And so, therefore, they would probably already have a very close working relationship with Andretti, it's a very easy thing to transition over into. Think about it. It's not too far-fetched, is it?
Well, the only thing I think is if they're using Renault engines, like Otmar's had an issue with Renault, right? Which is
true.
Where he's like, I don't want to deal with them again when it comes to engines.
True,
so.
But potentially Otmar has built up that relationship with Andretti. Andretti have poached him because they want to come in, and Andretti have, been smooth talking Alpine / Renault into an engine deal. So they would have, been given access to certain people, certain individuals, certain conversations could have happened, and then all of a sudden they get the fucking Honda engine because Otmar won't want to deal with Alpine again.
No,
and that's when you get Yuki Tsunoda to Andretti. No, I think that there's the way that it happened means that there wasn't some sort of mutual break there. Something happened there which doesn't sit right with either Alpine.
Well, I mean, the thing was he felt that the short-term expectations that the Renault board put on him were unrealistic.
Yes.
Which probably led down to breakdown in their relationship, and he's like, right, I'm going to Andretti. Okay, you can leave or rebuild. But it's like, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what something similar. But so they've lost Otmar, Alan Permain, that Pat Fry, he's gone to Williams, hasn't he now?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Oscar Piastri's gone.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso's gone. Their previous team principals at Marcin Buruwat or something like that.
No idea.
They're the previous team principal.
You're asking me about people in a team I don't particularly care about. So you could literally say, oh, his name was Florence Murcielago.
Well, what I'm saying is they've lost a lot of senior people and drivers in that team.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't seem like they're making the right decisions.
No, but obviously it's all coming down from, is it Rossi who's looking after them at the moment?
Felipe Creef.
Oh, Creef. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, it's summer break. I think we need a break.
We do. I think we do. Yeah, hopefully I'll be honest with you, the first half of the season has been interesting enough, but it's not been amazing. And I feel like that's partly because we were spoiled with a very good 2021 season as well, and we had a decent championship fight last year as well. So
for the first half of the season, yeah.
So this season has not been particularly amazing, other than arguably Alonso and McLaren sort of going against what was expected type thing. So hopefully the second half of the season will be a bit more interesting. But I think our plan was obviously to do like a mid-season review over the summer break as well. Which we
we can do a review. We can talk about some previous races. We can do some fun stuff. It literally is like, okay, let's have a prediction. Maybe we can put this on the Instagram, right?
Okay, sure. Well, what are you thinking?
When do you think Max, not Red Bull, Max will wrap up the Drivers' Championship? What race?
That's a great question.
Okay, so currently...
I think it's already wrapped up, but you mean mathematically, right?
So he is on 314 points.
Yeah.
So he is... I'm not very good at maths, but 314 take away 189. 125 points ahead of Sergio.
Yeah.
Okay. You now have left... let me just go back... oh no, because we've got
10 races left.
Right. Oh, sorry. It's how the F1 thing is set up, right? So you got 10 races left.
So that's 250 points.
When do you think he will have it wrapped up by?
So there's another 250 points.
Gap he's got to Sergio.
Yeah. There's another 250 points up for grabs.
Yeah.
So realistically, how I've said this before. previously, I said that he could have it wrapped up by the US Grand Prix in October, which is the 20th to 22nd of October.
So that's in
Toto.
5 races time.
Yeah. However, in complete honesty, there's an argument that he could, because obviously it's 25, 50, 75, 100. There's an argument that he could have it wrapped up by Japan, but it would take an absolute disaster class from Perez to have it secured in Japan again.
I think he would do it by Japan.
I think Japan is semi-realistic.
I think,
especially if Aston Martin win in Singapore.
Well, I think he'll win the Dutch Grand Prix, but I don't think Sergio is going to come second or even third in that race.
No.
Italy, they'll get the 1-2 high speed.
Yeah.
Singapore, he'll win. I don't think Sergio will come second.
No.
I think Japan, he'll win that, and he'll
Hold
win.
On a minute. I believe that Singapore don't have amazing human rights, so Sergio could do pretty well there, and Sergio could probably win in Qatar as well because they've got questionable human rights. So there's that. Plus his home race in Mexico. So
yeah, no, I think Japan. He's going to have it wrapped up.
I feel like Japan. He could be pretty much there. I think it's between Japan and the US. Japan, Qatar, US.
I'm going to say Japan. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, I think
you'll do it in 4 races time.
Yeah, I think that if Aston Martin somehow win in Singapore, then it won't happen in Japan. But if Max wins the Netherlands, wins Monza, wins Singapore, and then wins Japan, he's absolutely got it wrapped up. But I think if Aston Martin do something in Singapore or something else happens, then it will get pushed to Qatar/US.
Yeah, no, I think Japan. I think he's going to win every race. I just don't. Until Japan.
Mathematically, if he won every race, how long would it take him? Even if Perez finished P2 in every single race.
So I was like, if Max wins every,
because there must be a calculation somewhere, right?
When will he win the championship? Yeah, but I don't know if anyone's done it post Belgium. See, this was 5 days ago.
Yeah.
So basically, if he wins every Grand Prix, which ones have sprint races?
Oh shit! I don't know.
Okay, so there's not one at Netherlands. There's not one at Italy. There isn't one at Singapore.
I want to say there's only like one left. Brazil.
There isn't one at Japan. Qatar has one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Qatar has a sprint race. The Circuit of the Americas has a sprint race.
Huh.
And that Brazil has a sprint race.
Yeah, okay.
Vegas does not.
No.
And Abu Dhabi usually doesn't have one.
No.
So we've got 3 sprint races left, but they're Qatar, the US, and Brazil.
Yeah.
But I think he'll do it before that.
Yeah.
But anyway, if he wins every Grand Prix,
could your prediction come true and he wins the championship as part of a sprint race in Qatar?
Well, no. So if this is before Belgium, right? If Max Verstappen wins every Grand Prix and sprint race, and Perez finishes second in all of those, he'll clinch it at Qatar.
Yeah.
So he will win it at Qatar.
Yeah.
If Perez is second,
the rest of the time.
Yeah. So
which
basically, if Perez is P2 up until Qatar, he wins it in Qatar. But I don't think Perez will.
No, he obviously won't. So that's why I said Japan. I'm thinking Japan. Yeah.
So wow, that means he's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 races.
I think that would also mean that he would technically be the only driver to win 2 world championships in Japan.
Really?
Like, in terms of like actually winning the championship. I'm going to Google that statistic right now because that would be a very interesting statistic. Please bear with me. F1.
Because quite a few champions have won it at Japan, haven't they? Because it's so late in the season.
I'm really not sure. No, I don't want F1 drivers from Japan. How many times have 13 championships have been decided in Japan? So maybe I'm wrong, but so Michael Schumacher is the most successful driver in Suzuka, having recorded 6 victories between 95 and 2004. And Ferrari and McLaren are the most successful teams, won both 7 times. And yeah, there have been 11 occasions where a world champion has been crowned at Suzuka, including 5 consecutive seasons between 87 and 91. But it doesn't then carry. Oh, for fuck's sake, man!
Well, I'm just trying to think. Senna, Prost, Vettel, Max, Schumacher must have won a few there. Fernando, where's Fernando won his?
I don't know.
Has Lewis ever won it in Japan? He must have won it in Japan.
I feel like this is a very odd thing to.
Yeah, it would be a very odd thing to
like. Yeah, try and find out. I feel like it's a very niche fact. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I think this is maybe some research that we have to do after the podcast, because this obviously.
Yeah, we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, we're going to be here for a long time. Yeah. I'm still going for it. Still trying to see if I can.
We'll post it up on the socials.
Yeah, I mean, I'm flicking through now, and seeing if there's any, like, they have the repeat winners of the track, but they don't have like, oh, you won your championship here type thing. But I will Google it, and I will try and see like at what point, and I will try and work it out, and I'll post it on the Instagram as well. But we've had quite a few winners here as well, and they've had quite a few different layouts as well.
Yeah.
So
there's also been, if you're talking about Japan, they've had races at Fuji as well.
Yeah, true. So they've had, yeah. Well, I'm talking like Japanese Grand Prix. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, but yeah, I can't believe as well that the last person who won in Japan before COVID was Valtteri.
2019, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep, 2019.
But they were without the race for a long time, weren't they?
Yeah, so they didn't have it 2020 or 2021. So
cool.
Yeah. Cool. Well, all right. Well, we've been waffling on now for an hour and 17 minutes. This has been a long one. Turns out we have a lot to talk about when we argue, even though I came into this recording going, oh, well, this is going to be pretty boring because, the race wasn't particularly interesting. So
so you just like, I'm just going to start an argument just to get the minutes clocked up.
For the content,
Yeah.
But yeah, all right. Well, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much for listening.
It's been fun. Yeah.
And maybe if you're listening to this, let us know what your thoughts are on penalties.
Yeah, was it a penalty? Was it not a penalty? Should Carlos have been, black and white flagged?
I think just a penalty was enough. But yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
You're just adding more fuel to the fire, mate.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, pouring it on by the litre. But yeah, all right, cool. Well, yeah, thank you very much for listening, everyone. And we will be back next week to hopefully scratch that Formula One itch during the summer break.
Something's going to happen.
Something's got to happen. The minute that we finish this recording, something will probably happen. It'll be something ridiculous.
Something will happen. But thank you very much for listening. Enjoy your break as well from Formula One. It's going to last so long. You're going to be like, what? Is it X amount of days or X amount of weeks?
In a month, it's going to be like, Formula what? I haven't heard of that in years.
But awesome. Yeah, no. All right. Thank you very much.
Cheers, everyone.